Hey, what's up, everybody? It's Jamel Gibbs, your family-oriented entrepreneur. Welcome to another podcast episode. This is the Business and Investing Podcast, where you learn all things business and investing related. Today, we're going to talk about something very specific regarding real estate investing. Obviously, you guys know how I feel about real estate investing in general. This is a real estate investing related channel, although we do talk about other things. But today, we're going to talk about something that a lot of you guys have been bogging me down with, and that's opportunity zones. How can you get started investing in opportunity zones? What's the benefits of investing in opportunity zones? And how can you take advantage of those benefits in order to be able to grow your real estate investing portfolio? Now, I've personally listened to this particular guest today a few weeks ago, when I personally was looking into opportunity zones to invest in, and I learned a lot from our special guest. So I reached out to him. I said, hey, man, I need you on this podcast. And he was willing to hop on, willing to come on and really share everything that he knows. Now, he's definitely a wealth of knowledge when it comes to this particular subject. He's a real estate investor in Houston himself, killing it right now. And we can even talk about some of the deals he's done in the opportunity zones in Houston. Now, lo and behold, I didn't tell you this, Malaki, but when I watched your episode, just so you guys know, check out the episode that he did with Bigger Pockets. In fact, I'll link it in the description box so that you guys can go ahead and check that out. That's the episode that I personally watched. It popped up on my screen out of nowhere. And I said, this is something that I'd like to take a look at. I learned something from it. I continue my education, and I've been investing in real estate for over 20 years. This is something that you want to continue to do. This is how you learn new things. This is how you expand your mind. This is how you expand your wealth, right? You learn new things, and then you apply. That's why I provide information on this podcast so that you guys can learn from it, so that you can take this information, so that you can apply. Information without action is useless. You got to be able to apply the information that you learn. So today you're going to learn something. But like I was saying, I didn't tell you this, Malaki, but right after that podcast that you did with the Bigger Pockets team, what I did, I went and looked at every property that I have, and I saw which ones were in opportunity zones and which ones weren't. I didn't even know some of them were in opportunity zones. Right. And then that thing that you talked about until I think it's 2047, so 27 years or something like that. Right. As long as you own it for over, that's stuff that we'll talk about once we get into the meat of the conversation. But I think if you own it for over 10 years, you alleviate the taxes or something like that. That's something that we can discuss. But I learned a tremendous amount. I think that podcast was almost 2 hours. I think I told you that I don't sit and listen to certain podcast episodes for that long. That thing felt like it was 30 minutes long, and it was over 2 hours, man. So great episode, fantastic information on it. Appreciate it. I appreciate you hopping on this podcast. Malaki Sims, what's going on, my man?
Not much, man. I hope everything's going well. Thanks for giving me an opportunity to come on the podcast and talk about this tax law, which I think is the best tax legislation I've seen in my life, and a lot of average everyday investors can benefit from it. So glad to be here.
Oh man, it's a pleasure, brother. So listen, obviously I've gotten a chance to know you over the last couple of weeks. Why don't you tell everybody a little bit about yourself so that they know where you're coming from and when you speak, what position you're speaking from?
No problem. So I'm a CPA here, based in Houston, born and raised in the Houston area. Only time I've not lived here is when I was in college at Morehouse and UT. Went to school, came back home. Been a CPA for over 20 years, working in a wide variety of different sectors. Started real estate investing in around 2011, and I kind of let my knowledge of the tax code kind of guide, what I invest in. So my wife and I, we primarily focus on affordable housing and renting single family housing in the Houston area. We're at a point now where to take advantage of this law, we build the homes that we rent in opportunity zones only or specifically, and we rent those homes, to a wide variety of tenants, whether those be some are long term, some are short term, some transitional housing. We just mix it up depending on what's best for that property and what's best for the area.
So you're not necessarily buying, fixing, and renting properties. You're buying the land, building the houses within these opportunity zones, and then instead of selling the house, you're cashing out of them and keeping the properties, right? So you're essentially doing the BRRRR,
Correct.
but you're building
exactly
houses rather than buying existing structures, right?
We're BRRRR investors. We just substitute the buy for build. Now, under the opportunity zone law, you can actually do both. So all they care about is significant improvement in the area. So obviously new construction counts as significant improvement. So we tend to focus on that because we like to have, a brand new product, and we just think it's easier to do new construction than to go back and try to rehab something. You don't know what kind of, surprises you might run into. But rehab works, just the same.
Yeah, absolutely, man. What I like about, and you can correct me if I'm wrong, what I like about the build model is as long as you own the land, it's much easier to get the loan on the land because you can use the land as the down payment on the as your skin in the game, so to speak.
Right, correct. So if you own the land, when you're building, you typically, unless you pay for everything cash, you'll typically get a construction loan to do the project. And when banks obtain your land, they have to give you fair value for the land. So they have to quote unquote buy it from you at fair value. So if you have equity in the land, then you can use that as your down payment on the construction loan and essentially not have to pay anything to get into the deal. You'll still need, bridge money throughout the deal, during your construction loan because the bank doesn't pay you back. They pay you back via draws on the back end of what you built. Mm-hmm. So you'll still need finance. You'll still need money for that, but that can also be financed too. But it's a lot easier to walk in. If you got the dirt, that's half the battle.
Got it, man. We're going to get into all of that stuff. I definitely want to talk about the build and hold model in opportunity zones and why that's beneficial. I think, and just to give you guys a little bit of an idea of where I'm going with it, I think building to hold is easier than buying an existing structure because you never know what's behind the walls on an existing structure.
Most definitely.
But when you're building, you can literally calculate the cost for what it is, and you know what you're going to spend going in.
It helps a lot with rehab too, because if something goes wrong in one of my properties now, if I took pictures throughout the entire process, so I know what's behind every wall. I see a leak coming from this area. I know exactly what pipe is behind there, where my weak spots are. So it helps with maintenance. If you build your house right, you obviously should have deferred maintenance on it, so that saves you money. But when something does go wrong, you built it, so you should know where everything is.
That's right. What size homes are you building, like square footage wise?
Between 1,100 to 1,500 square feet. So when we get a plot of land, we try to obviously put as many homes on the land as possible. So an average size lot here in Houston is about 5,000 square feet. That can roughly get you 2 to 3 homes, depending on how the land is configured. So if you can get 3 homes on there, they can be between that 11 to 1,300 square foot range. If you only stick to 2 levels, if it's a corner lot or so where you can fit 3 homes, if it's not a corner lot and you can only fit 2 homes on it, then you can get in that 1,500, 1,600 square foot range. Also with 2 levels. Gotcha. Now, if you go 3 levels, you can put more square footage. Just costs more money.
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, out here for every acre. You could fit 2 to 3 houses per acre, pretty much. Okay. So, if there's 10 acres, I could probably get, obviously we need roads and stuff like that. We could probably fit a good 25, almost 30 houses on 10 acres. Let's just say. Okay. You know what I mean?
So they make you reserve a lot of the space for land, is what it sounds.
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah. Yep.
Okay. Yep.
So, quick question, man. How did you get started in real estate?
From good friends, believe it or not. So, the first house I actually bought from my mom, right? So I really got into real estate, I would say, when I lost my home, when we lost my childhood home when I was in the 5th grade. It was in 3rd Ward, where I'm from, where I live now, and we lost the home because we couldn't afford to keep it anymore. So it was at that, and then from that point on, we had to move, way across town, and live in an apartment until I graduated high school, and I just got to see, I had to meet all new friends, new school, the whole nine. I could just kind of see, the impact of not having a home and becoming a renter. So I say I really got interested in real estate at that point, so I could make sure I never lost my home again. So the first home I bought for her, so she could get back in the house. My second home, I bought for myself, and that was really, I guess, the beginning of my journey, because I picked a home based on one of my friends' guidance who was in real estate. I picked a home in an area where I would have a lot of equity going forward, and the equity in that house is what allowed me to buy the other houses in my portfolio when I first started. So I was just blessed with good friends that were already involved in real estate, and when I was making my initial investment decisions, they kind of held my hand and guided me and told me, hey, you should invest in this area because it'll appreciate, you'll get the equity, etc. And one of my other good friends actually sold me and found me my first investment property once my first son was born. He knew I had a son.
How long ago was that?
That was 2011.
2011 is when you bought. That's when you started investing, or
that's when I started. That's when I bought my first investment house. 2011.
Okay.
So
Gotcha.
My son was coming in 2012. I had a good friend that was already involved in real estate. Actually, he was on your podcast, Onaje Barnes.
Onaje Barnes.
Yeah.
That's my guy, man. Matter of fact,
yeah.
I mean, for those of you who didn't know, Onaje, he buys apartments in Houston, and also in his apartment complexes, he looks for additional space where he can, like, for example, in that episode, we were talking about how he uses the additional space for laundromats. I'm gonna link that podcast up in the cards for you guys to check that out. Make sure you watch that episode as well. Onaje is a great dude, man, and he's killing it right now in Houston.
Yeah, he's killing it. That's my guy.
His wife just released a book about a year ago as well, man. So definitely check that out. Check that episode out. You'll get all that information on there.
Right. Yeah, exactly. Yeah, that's my guy. So Onaje and I went to college
together.
Man. Yeah. We went to UT together. I was there for grad school, and he was a sophomore, I believe. Anyway, we're in the same fraternity, so I pledged him in college. We both moved back to Houston. We're both from 3rd Ward, both from the same neighborhood. So, up 2011, 2012, before then I didn't have any children. So at that time I was about to have my first son. And then the talks about, generational wealth and all that kind of got a little more serious. Onaje was already, involved in real estate investing. So he already had a couple of homes, but he knew it was something I was kind of interested in, but that I wouldn't necessarily. I was having hesitations because all the fears of typical investing, and it might cost a lot of money. It's hard to find tenants, yada yada yada, all that stuff. So he found a dynamite deal house, $30,000, $30,000, 3-1 house that didn't need much work. And instead of buying that house for himself, he gave the house to me so I could buy, with the thought being, hey man, get this house. You'll see how easy it is, because it's not, it doesn't need a lot of work. It should rent easy. And once you see how easy it is, I think you'll continue to do it. So that's how I got involved.
Got you, man. Yeah, he's a good dude, man. He looked out for you on that one, I'll tell you that.
Out, big time. Looked out. I paid him back in a few ways, but yeah, he looked out initially. Yeah.
Understood, man. That's what you're supposed to do, right? Help them out along the way. Help each other out, man.
Help each other out. The ships rise.
That's how you make it happen. That's right, man. So what was the mindset shift? Let's kind of hop into. So you've done fix and flip before. You've done fix and hold. I'm assuming, right?
Right.
What was the mindset shift that it took to go from fix and hold using the BRRRR into build and hold?
Okay, so it was really two things. And again, this is where another friend of mine comes into play. So 2017, the tax law changed, right? So we got the opportunity zone law, which hit the books and gave us, again, a crazy, great piece of legislation to encourage people to do new construction or significant rehab. Right around that time, I actually built my own house. So I moved into my own house. During the building process, another friend that I was another mentor of mine, kind of let me know. He was like, "Hey, man, you see what it takes to build a house because you're pretty involved in building your own house. You can do this on a smaller scale. If you can build your home, you can build something smaller. And with what you kind of already know, with the law that's coming, these are the areas where things are going to develop." So he took me to his old neighborhood where they had a 150 acre development called the East River Project that was set to come to that part of Houston. And land at that time was still cheaper in that area. So it just made sense to, get in from the ground level, buy some land while it wasn't expensive, and replicate what I was doing for my own home there on a smaller scale. And it all fit within, the elements of the law to make it attractive from that standpoint. So it just all came together. So right. That's how I got involved in building. And at the time, our prices in Houston, kept increasing. So it made more sense to build instead of buying new because you could save money building and have a new product. Right.
Unless you're, even in a market like this, as we start making a transition into a buyer's market, you may not get aggressive pricing like we were over the last couple of years. But if you're holding long term, it really doesn't matter. It
doesn't matter. You're still going to save money. And because whoever builds that house or rehabs it or whatever, they're at a lower price point, obviously, so they can make profit. So you can be at that lower price point and sacrifice the profit up front, like you said earlier, to do your BRRRR, to do your cash out refi, to get the house for free. So
you can't, think about this, man. You really can't lose. Look at a house. They said the market crashed in 2008. It did, right? But look at a house in 2008 versus a house today. A house back then was still cheaper than it is today. You're still gonna appreciate in value over time.
Exactly.
It just makes sense, especially when you're holding.
Exactly. So you just need to make sure that your construction price is 75% of whatever the comps are, so you can get the house for free. And then you need to make sure that your construction price will rent out on a long-term basis, so you're protected from that standpoint while you hold it. As long as those two things align, you can't lose.
So let's talk about that for a second. When you say 75% of the comps, you mean built homes, or are you talking about land in the area?
Built homes, finished homes. So if you want a house, a free asset, you essentially can go in any neighborhood and say, "Hey, what's selling over here?" Right? Okay, I see all these homes. They're selling for $300 each, $310, $350, whatever. This is what my comps say they're selling for. Okay, well, if I can build something for 75% of that, then when I do my cash out refi at the end, they're going to use those sales comps to give me to set the basis of what a house is worth. So my 75% of those sales comps will give me all my money back that I spent on construction. So now
that's including the cost of the land as well, right?
It should be, yes, including the cost of the land. When I say construction cost, I mean all cost, everything. You should be at 75% or below.
Got it, man. So what are you building homes for per square foot these days?
It really varies. It depends on what you put in it and really the price of lumber at the time. Okay. So I think the last home we finished, we were in the 90 range or so.
Got it.
For full completion. But that was at the height. That was at the height of lumber being high. And additionally, it also depends on, because it's just a formula, right? Your cost per square foot. So obviously, if you build smaller homes, say I build a home that's 1,100 to 1,300 square feet, my price per square foot is inherently going to be higher because I have a lower number to divide it by. You see what I'm saying? So you really have to look at what you're building.
That's right. That's right, man. So at the end of the day, between the land and obviously the more land you buy,
right?
You're gonna. I personally think the more land you buy, the more effective you're gonna be when you're building because you're getting land for cheaper.
Correct.
And then when you put the houses on it on top of that, as long as you're 75% all in, so when you go to refi cash out at 80 cents on a dollar or something like that,
right?
You're gonna be able to get all your money back,
everything,
and be able to keep the property
for free. free house,
exactly. Yep.
and then you depreciate it, so you actually make money from the depreciation.
Yeah,
But,
man. So
yeah.
so so you're doing this in opportunity zones at the moment. You're looking for the land in the opportunity zones.
Correct, because it gives you another tax break. So everything we just described about building works anywhere, right? But if you do it in an opportunity zone area, then if you hold that property for 10 years, you can eventually sell it and not have to pay any capital gains up until 2047. That's a very long time. On top of
man.
that, that depreciation that you took on the house, you don't have to pay that back either. So typically they have depreciation recapture. Whatever you took or that you were supposed to take, when you sell the home, you got to pay the government a tax, usually in the 20% range, a tax back on the depreciation that they gave you. But with the opportunity zone law, you don't have to pay that back either.
Got it. So let's dig into the opportunity zones a little bit, then we'll tie it all together. So we spoke about how you're buying land, and I'm assuming you're getting this from wholesalers, and obviously this is distressed land, right?
I get it. I take it anyway. I can get
Anyway,
MLS, home sellers, church lady.
Right.
I mean, anybody that knows someone that's selling land in Houston, let me know.
So you buy the land, you
Right.
have your team together where you're obviously building the land. You're doing this within opportunity zones specifically. And then
Yes.
let's talk about what is an opportunity zone for those of you, for our listeners who don't know.
Okay, so it's essentially a area that the government has said we want to see improvement in this area, and we're going to give taxpayers a tax break to come in and invest their capital to make the areas better, so we don't have to spend our money to make the areas better. So the zones or areas were designated at the state level. So whoever runs the state legislature decided these are the areas in Houston or whatever city you live in that are going to be opportunity zone areas, and we're going to give you a benefit to go develop these areas.
So there's obviously some obstacles when it comes to investing in opportunity zones. What are some of the cons that you can foresee, if any?
The only con is that there is no con. Actually, there's no downside. I would say the only con is that you have to hold it 10 years to get the tax break. But if you sell before 10 years, there's no penalty for it. You just pay the tax that you would have paid anyway. So I don't see any downside to it at all.
So it's not costing you anything. The only difference is if you don't hold it for 10 years, then obviously, so for example, I have a house in an opportunity zone right now. If I decided this year that I wanted to sell it, I'm going to just pay the regular tax on it. But if I hold it for 10 years, then I won't pay any tax.
Yes and no. So it doesn't apply to homes that you owned already prior to 2017. Okay. They have to be new purchases, new construction, or new rehab. So if you have a home,
this is a new rehab.
Okay. So if it's a new rehab, as long as you have your structure properly, like you bought it under your opportunity zone fund, and we can get into the structuring later. As long as it's structured properly, and you held it for 10 years and did all your due diligence, then you can sell it up to 2047 and not have to pay tax on it.
Wow, man.
Or depreciation.
So obviously there's a ton of benefits to this, man. Let's talk about, because now you sparked my interest with the structuring it the right way.
Right.
If you purchased it and then after the fact you found out that it was in an opportunity zone, could you go back and do the paperwork to?
No.
You can't.
No.
Oh wow. So
can't.
how does that? So you almost
it's got to be. You got to do it right from jump. So there are a few things you need. A, the property has to be in an opportunity zone, right? So that's either new development. You just Google opportunity zones for your city, and they'll usually have a map, and you can type in the address, and it'll tell you if it's an opportunity zone or not.
Got it. I'll really share a link in the description box where I use. I literally did exactly what Malaki just said. I went to Google, searched for maps of opportunity zones, and then on that map you can actually type in your zip code or the property address, and it'll tell you if it's in an opportunity zone or not. So I'll link that in the description box for you guys.
Right. And type in the specific address, not the zip code, because I've seen instances where one side of the street is OZ property and the other side is so
literally across the street from my property.
Literally across the
when I'm
street.
talking- Yep.
Yeah, I've seen instances where literally across the street, one side meets the criteria and one side doesn't. So okay.
My property just made it into the opportunity. Across the street from my property, it's not an opportunity.
Oh wow. Okay. Yeah, I see what you're saying. Yeah, exactly. So you want to be real specific when you search. So that's obviously step one. Make sure the property is OZ property. That's step one. Step two, your initial investment into the OZ, like what you use to purchase the property, has to be made with capital gains. Specifically capital gains. You have to sell something and cash out of some type of investment, something, to get the money to invest in the project. So the government's
be earned.
Yeah, the government's saying we're going to give you this break, but we need a little taste right now. So we got to tax something. Not at this specific date, but within a few years, we need to be able to tax some of these capital gains to encourage you to pull out of your investments, give us some early upfront tax dollars, and then we'll give you this larger break at the end. So
see, I didn't catch that before. So basically, the money that you invest into the opportunity zone, let's say I sell this property now, I'm going to pay capital gains on it.
Right.
It would benefit me to take the money from this property and put it into an opportunity zone.
Yes, correct.
Property where I'm going to go ahead and
correct, because you can only invest with capital gains dollars. Now the capital gains tax that you owe for what you just cashed out, you will owe tax on that eventually, but not right now. At the end of 2026 is when you have to pay the tax on that. But that gives you an extra 4 years to invest in something and make the difference of what you would have to pay the government anyway. So that's why I say there's really no downside. So you just make sure you invest with capital gains, and then you have to make sure that it's structured the right way. So all of the investing has to be done in an entity called an Opportunity Zone Fund. And that's basically a company, So just like most people have their real estate that they purchase in an individual company anyway, it just has to be in a designated company. And 90% of the assets that you put in that company have to be invested in Opportunity Zone property.
Okay.
That's it.
Just so I got it clear, and this is for everybody listening as well. So I have a property in Florida, and I have another property here in North Carolina, and I'm going to be selling over the next month. Right?
Okay.
I'm probably going to cash out about $100,000 between the two properties. So what you're saying is take the $100,000, put it into a separate fund. Put it
into an Opportunity Zone fund.
We're literally going to call it
your own Opportunity Zone fund. Okay.
And how do you structure the Opportunity Zone fund?
It can be an entity. It can be a LLC, corporation, partnership, just a separate entity.
Okay. And just create the bank account for that entity.
Well, create the entity itself. The separate entity. It's got to be an actual entity.
And then a bank account on top of that, because obviously the money has to go somewhere, right? And then take that money, and now invest that into the Opportunity Zone.
So you cash out. You take that $100K. You have 180 days to get that $100K
6 months
into the Opportunity Zone fund, which is your new entity. Okay, get that $100K in that fund within 60 days. Within 180 days, and then within 180 days from that, you have to get that money into some type of investment.
So you got a year, basically. Essentially,
you got a year basically to start on the investment. Now, when you get the money in the investment, then the next step is you either have to build something new or do significant rehab. They count significant rehab is basically saying whatever you bought it for, that's how much money you got to put into it. Think of it that way. So if you take that $100K and you go buy another house that's $100K, then you have to put $100K into that house. Or you take that $100K and you go buy 5 $20K houses. You have to put $20K into each house. Or you take that $100K and just build something from the ground up. Then whatever you build is just what you build.
I got you. Okay, so it has to equal. So if I buy something for $50K, I got to put $50K in rehab into it, pretty much.
Pretty much. Now technically, you have to put the price, the value of the actual physical building. because land has a value too. So if you buy something for $50K and the land is worth $10K, then the building's worth 40. You got to match the 40.
Okay, I got you.
Yeah,
it makes perfect sense, man. So what if I took half of let's say, I know I got, let's say 100K, right? What if I took 50% of that money? Could I do that as well?
Yep. You don't have you can break it out. So if you take the 50K and you decide you want to keep the other 50, you pay tax on your 50 now, and then the tax you would owe on the other 50, as long as you invested correctly, 2026 is when you pay that.
Got it. Oh man, this is helping me out big time personally, man, because now I can defer that money.
You can defer it, 2026. And whatever you would owe in taxes, you pick the right investment, you should be able to pay that back in 4 years, right?
Now, could you use private money to do this as well, or it has to come from capital gains?
It has to be capital gains.
Okay.
It has to be capital gains. So that's why now you see most of the firms, and this is why I'm glad, I had the chance to talk about this on Bigger Pockets, because I'm talking to the average smaller investor, right? So most of the opportunity zone stuff you see, they are bigger firms, large firms, basically telling you, hey, come give us your opportunity zone money and invest in our project, when you can go make your own fund and invest in your own projects. But it has to be capital gains.
Has to be capital.
And again, the capital gains, so say you want to build a house that costs $300,000, you don't need $300,000 of capital gains. You only need enough capital gains to get into the deal. Because like with other parts of real estate, same thing with the BRRRR method, you can borrow money to build your house or to complete your investment. So you can still use leveraging with the program.
You can.
Yes.
Okay,
you can.
but that has to be capital gains money as well?
It doesn't. You need capital gains money to lock up the deal. So just purchase. Just purchase. To keep it simple, let's just say my 20% down on an investment property, I need my 20%, my purchase, to come from capital gains. And just like I would borrow that 80% from a bank, I can still borrow the rest of the money.
Got it. So let's say, for example, if it's a $100,000 property, as long as the $20,000 came from capital gains to lock up the deal, the 80% could come from the bank, and we're good.
80% can come from the bank. Funds. Right. Now, there's one caveat to that. Typically when you do the BRRRR, you do the cash out refi, right? At the end, whatever you invested in capital gains has to stay in that property for at least 2 years. You can't. They don't want you, taking money and then going to get the cash out and then getting a big windfall later based on that money supposed to have been in that account. It's called a disguised sale. So it's got to sit at least 2 years.
So if I buy an apartment building with the money and use the funds, let's say it's $100,000 and I buy, an 8-unit apartment building for $500,000, let's just say, right? So as long as I have the $100,000 sitting in the property for 2 years, I can't BRRRR it out until 2 years later. So my terms with my lender would have to match the fact that I'm not going to cash out for 2 years.
Right. Well, you can BRRRR it out. You just can only BRRRR out and get 80%.
80%. You can't, and leave my 20%.
Leave your 20% in. But if you build something from ground up, or all the rehab work that you do, all of the amount that was financed, you can BRRRR it out and get all that back. Just not your capital gains part of the investment.
Keep the 20% in there. Okay, got it, man. Understood. This is good stuff, man. So obviously most people, they look at opportunity zones, but they really don't understand, how to invest in opportunity zones. I think you just did a great job with breaking that down, man. So,
it's just like any other investment. It's just got to be, you just have to use capital gains to get in, and you have to have it structured properly in your proper entity, and make sure you hit those deadlines and criteria. So if I get in, make sure I get my money moved over within 6 months. Make sure I get into a property within 6 months, and then make sure that 90% of the money I move over is in some type of property. Because what they don't want is you cashing out and just letting money sit in the bank for 4 years trying to get a tax break. Like it needs to be invested in the property.
Let me ask you this, man, and this is just a random question because I know you mentioned capital gains before. What if I BRRRR'd out? Let's say I guess it wouldn't count because it would, a loan is really an untaxable event
Right.
at that point. I was going to ask you though, what if I were to refi cash out the money to invest into the opportunity zone? But then I think I just answered my own question.
Yeah,
You kind of
definitely.
know where I'm going with it?
Yeah, yeah. You got to sell something. You got to sell the asset.
It has to be sold.
It has to be sold. Yep.
And this can apply to any type of property. It could be commercial. It could be, as long as it's within an opportunity zone, right?
It applies. You talking about to pull your capital gains from?
No, meaning, yeah, exactly.
Yeah. It can be any type.
To invest in.
It can be. You can pull your capital gains from any type of asset. It doesn't have to be a house or property. It can be jewelry. It can be crypto. It can be stock. It can be comic books. Any of that stuff. Anything that counts as
Sale
a capital
of a business,
yeah.
right?
Yep. You can sell it.
Anything. So you
Yep.
can pull your capital gains from that.
Yes.
And then as long as you invest that money into another property, it could be land, it could be commercial, it could be a regular house within an opportunity zone,
Yes.
then you're good. Doesn't
You're good.
matter the type of property, right?
Nope. Doesn't matter.
Perfect, man.
As long as it's new or you improve it, then you're good.
Now, obviously there's a difference between short-term and long-term capital gains.
They both
right?
count.
So they say that again?
They both count. It's capital gain.
Wow. Okay.
Now the only difference is going to be to you, right? Because the tax rate on a short-term gain is higher than on a long-term capital gain. So when your tax bill comes due in 2026, just know you're going to owe more money on it, but it still
Got
counts.
it. So what if I keep the property? What if I decided I want to buy a property, fix it up, and then keep it for a year just to alleviate the short-term capital gain, and then the day we hit a year, sell the property. Now I'm just paying on.
You're going to pay the tax you would have paid anyway.
Right. Exactly.
Right. Yep.
Exactly.
So the tax you deferred on that short term gain, that short term, whether it's short or long term, the tax you deferred to get into the project, you're going to pay your capital gains tax on that, and then you're going to pay your capital gains tax on the investment that you just built.
Got it.
That's it. You just pay the government what you would have paid anyway. Penalty.
Right.
Yeah.
That's right, man. So let's break this down for our listeners. I think I got a full 360 understanding of how this works at this point. I may have some more questions for you after.
Okay.
I'm trying to think of anything that our listeners would ask in order to be able to take advantage of these opportunities. Because I haven't, I was blind to this type of investing until a couple months ago when I heard your podcast episode, and then it just opened my mind up to a whole different world of investing. I've heard about opportunity zones before, and I've been doing this for over 20 years, man. So it's like whenever I learn something new, it's like I'm like a kid in a candy store because I love real estate so much that, you know what I mean?
Right. I know what you
So
mean.
I'm just trying to ask questions that I know that our listeners might have as well.
Okay.
Why don't we provide them with a step-by-step process? Let's walk them through a real type of scenario. It doesn't have to be a real transaction, but a real scenario of how you go from finding the land to building a house within an opportunity zone to saving money on the taxes, and why it behooves them to keep a property for 10 years and why they should take advantage of this up until 2047.
Makes sense. Okay, so I'll walk you through what I do. And it's a mixture of building in general, but doing it in an opportunity zone. So my goal at the end of the day is to get a free asset using the BRRRR method, just by building instead of buying, okay? So I'll look for opportunity zone property. So in my city, I'm in Houston, a common myth is that these are bad areas, like bad property. It's not. A lot of these areas are great areas to invest in. So in Houston, for example, 1/3 of all of the inner city property in Houston is opportunity zone property. So the first thing I'm going to do, I'm going to look on the MLS in opportunity zones and see where I see sales activity, comps. Okay, where are a lot of houses being sold? That's important because that's going to help me with my financing later on. So I'm going to identify the areas where I see lots of sales, and then say, hey, whatever they're building in this, whatever's selling over here, can I build that for under 75%? And the answer should be yes, because in theory, the builder is building to sell, right? So they plan on making some money. You're saying, forget the money for now. I want to sell to the bank and use the equity to get the asset for free. But that's step one, identifying in an opportunity zone where you have lots of sales comps, okay? Now I see lots of sales comps in that area. I'm either going to look for land in that area or homes that need significant rehab. Okay, I've identified that. I see what land costs, or I see what it'll cost to purchase a property that I have to fix up, a fixer-upper. Then you take your capital gains, sell something and take your capital gains and use that to either purchase the land or purchase the property that needs new development. You still with me?
Yep.
Okay, so now I've taken my capital gains and I'm going to use that to purchase the property, the property or purchase the land. When I make that purchase, I'm going to make it using my qualified opportunity fund, which is my entity that I have set up that's going to hold this property for at least 10 years. So that entity owns the property. Malaki, I do not own the property. Go ahead.
Can I use a trust as well versus an LLC? As long as it's an entity, right?
That I'm not sure of. I don't know. I don't know if a trust is allowed. So I'm not sure.
Honest answer.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know. But I know banks lend to trust. I just don't know if that entity type is allowed to make the purchasing. I'm not sure.
I got you.
Okay.
That's
but
fair.
yeah, you get you make the purchase with your entity, with a qualified opportunity fund, and I just don't know if a trust counts as a qualified opportunity fund entity. I just don't know. I don't know. But you make the purchase with your qualified opportunity fund. Okay, 6 months. I have 6 months to get my money, my capital gain money that I cashed out, into that fund, and then I have another 6 months to basically start the work on that to either start new construction or start the rehab work on that. Now then I'll go to my personal tax return and I'll fill out a form that lets the government know, hey, I sold something and created a capital gain. Okay? And I'm letting the government know that I'm not reporting tax on this now because I put that money in an opportunity zone fund. So that would be a form 8949 that you fill out with your 1040. And it just lets them know that, hey, I sold something, but I'm deferring tax because the money's in this fund. And then whatever entity you form, you'll fill out a form 8996 to let the government know this entity is a qualified opportunity fund. So now I've done my paperwork. Okay. Now I got my money in the fund. I let the government know I sold something. I'm not reporting tax. I let the government know this entity is my opportunity zone fund, and I'm letting you know that that's what it is, right? So now I have to hit the benchmarks to make sure that 90% of the assets in that fund are invested in opportunity zone property. As long as I do that, I build whatever I need to build. I do my rehab. I make sure if it's rehab, I make sure I invest I make sure my rehab cost equals what the purchase price was minus land, and then I hold that property for 10 years. Then I can sell it tax free if I need to sell it.
And that's it.
And then that's it. And at the end, when you go to the bank and do your BRRRR to get your construction money back or your rehab money back, you just make sure that whatever you invest in capital gains, you keep that in there in the property for at least 2 years.
So if it's $100,000, make sure $100,000 stays in the property. If it's 20, make sure that stays in the property.
Make sure that stays in the property for at least 2 years. Don't BRRRR that. Don't BRRRR that portion out. And then come 2026, I now owe tax on whatever capital gain amount I cashed out previously to get into the investment. I have to pay tax on that 2026.
Right.
So if I took out 100, I owe capital gains tax and recapture on that 100 then.
So do you feel like it's beneficial to simply, I think this is a great way for an investor to start investing, because I'm thinking as an investor now, if I'm BRRRRing properties and I'm pulling out untaxable money,
Right.
up front, does it benefit me to put that money into an opportunity zone, or
Yes.
is this a better way to start in an opportunity zone, but then just keep turning the money over because you're not going to necessarily pay taxes on it right now anyway?
I'll say the best way to start is in the opportunity zone, because at that, when you cash out at the end, say you want to cash out in 10 years from now, you're going to have a tax-free exit to do whatever you want. The government has a lot of tax deferred options. They don't have very many tax-free options.
This is a tax-free option.
Yeah, now 10 years from now, you can walk away with all those gains untouched. So I don't see why anyone would invest. Well, I see why they would, but if you're doing the work anyway, right? So this law is perfect for people that do rehab work no matter what. If you're not used to doing rehab, and you just want to buy a house and it's ready, move in day one, you want the keys, you want the turnkey, this isn't for you. But if you're doing significant rehab already or new construction, it's perfect for you. The only change you have to make is do it in those designated areas and make sure you use capital gains to get into the deal and do your paperwork right. But for those investors, if you don't mind rehab or new construction, it doesn't make sense to do it in an area that's not going to give you a tax-free escape. I'd rather have that. It's all about your exit strategy in real estate at the end of the day. Why not have a exit strategy that you don't have to pay tax on?
I mean, bro, this is like, I can't believe this is even legal, man. This is
me either. It's
incredible.
It's beyond incredible. You can basically, you get 25 more years to not pay tax.
2047.
20 not pay tax or depreciation recapture. Both of them.
I'm 40. I'll be 42 in a few months, right?
Right.
I literally won't have to pay tax until I'm 60. What is that? 67?
Yeah.
67, and then I'm in a tax. I don't know if I'm going to be in a different tax bracket or not at that point, but
correct.
The whole point is, that's like never paying taxes.
It can be, especially if you start investing your 30s, your 40s. That's a significant part of your lifespan. And on top of that, we're still in a period this year. It goes down some next year, but you still get 100% bonus depreciation right now. So if you do a cost seg study on that apartment or whatever you're going to build, you can get a lot of that upfront depreciation, like 25 to 30% of your property value. You might be able to get upfront bonus depreciation right now. And then you don't have to worry about paying it back. As long as you hold it 10 years, you don't have to pay it back. So if I buy an apartment complex that's $1 million, right? Let's just walk through the numbers. I buy an apartment complex that's $1 million, or my total cost is $1 million, right?
That's all in with rehab and everything.
Yeah. Let's just say I'm a small one, right? Let's say I'm all in for $1 million. Well, I can do a cost seg on that now and get bonus depreciation for a portion of that. Everything that has a useful life of less than 20 years, I get bonus depreciation on. So let's just say I do bonus depreciation on 25% of that. So now I can write off $250,000 right now today, and I can take rents of up to $250,000 without paying tax on it. Wow. Or I can use that deduction to offset some of my other investments that I have income on by $250,000 today up front. And as long as I hold it 10 years, I don't ever have to pay the government back that money that they gave me.
Wow, man. So let's put that in layman's terms for everybody listening. How would you simplify that? Okay,
so if you invest in real estate, in that example, it'd be 39 years. Well, I'll go back to it. So you invest in real estate. One of the biggest benefits of real estate is depreciation.
Yep.
That's the government basically saying, whatever you spent on this asset, we're going to give you your initial investment back over time. So if it's single family, that's typically 27 and a half years. The government basically gives you back, like 3.5, 3.6% of your investment every single year. If you're in multifamily, like an apartment complex, property like that is typically 39 years that they give you the money back. But for portions of your house or your apartment that have a useful life of less than 20 years, so stuff like special lights or countertops or concrete, things like that, if it has a useful life of 20 years or less, the government this year will let you take 100% of that depreciation now. Next year, it drops down to 80%. Then the next year after that, it drops down to 60%, then 40, then 20, unless, Congress changes the law, right? But as of now, the laws are on the books. This year, you get 100%. Next year, you get 80%. So that's bonus depreciation. Real estate investors take bonus depreciation all the time. The only drawback to taking that is when you sell the property, they have something called depreciation recapture. So that's the government saying, okay, we gave you this, but we gave you this depreciation, this free money, right? We gave it to you, but now that you sold the property, you got to pay us back a portion of that. It's typically like 20%, or 20% range of the tax you have to pay back on the money they gave you. But in this program, you don't have to pay it back when you sell the property, as long as you hold it for 10 years.
Listen, everybody listening to this podcast right now, you need to listen to what Malachi's talking about. The government is giving away free money right now. Essentially,
long story short, the government is giving away a lot of free money right now.
A lot of free money. It's a great time to be a real estate investor.
Yes. So
great
if you
time. Fantastic.
Just think, if you have a home, the government right now theoretically can give you 25 to 30%, between 20 to 30% of the value of that home back if you have the proper paperwork, which is from a cost segregation study. You get a cost segregation study. Go ahead.
What if this is finish what you were going to say about the cost segregation study.
Oh, so if you have the proper paperwork to get your bonus depreciation, the proper paperwork would be you paying someone to come in and do a cost segregation study for you.
Mm-hmm. So, quick question for you, man. What if this isn't an investment, but it's your personal residence?
Doesn't count.
How does that apply?
It doesn't count.
Doesn't count. Your personal residence doesn't. Got it.
Well, maybe. So, a personal residence that you only live in doesn't count. But in a realm where a lot of people do short-term rental, then that's a business portion of your residence. That part does count. Part.
Yes. Or what if it's let's say a house hack?
House hack counts, but not for opportunity zone, because it has to be purely business. Business only. Yeah.
Got it.
Yeah.
Man, the government is really giving away free money.
Right. And but the cost seg has nothing to do with opportunity zone. That's just a benefit of real estate investing. That's always been there. It's just that this year is one of the last years where they give you 100% of it.
Quick question: do you feel like opportunity zones will always be around? I know that we're benefiting from it until 2047, but do you feel like they'll do it again? Because obviously areas get older, they want to pick up certain areas. You feel like
no?
I mean, what do you foresee?
Only if we get another president that's a real estate investor, like the one was that put this law into effect. Yeah. No, I don't see it ever happening again. It's tax free, and just the government doesn't do tax free.
Yeah,
they do tax deferred, but not tax free.
Right.
So no,
that's right.
I don't see anything this good ever coming along again, where they give you a tax free exit. Even your 401k and all that stuff isn't tax free.
Yeah, that's right, man. Do you feel like going in, okay, we have until 2047, you feel like they can change the laws anytime between now and then to prevent something like this from taking place?
Can they? In theory, yes, they could, but I don't see it happening. I mean, so just look at the act that Biden just passed, right? So they couldn't get they had to strip that bill of things that would have raised taxes on the wealthy already, So no, I don't see something happening that would pass legislation to get rid of it. I think the real estate lobby and all of that is just too strong. That's
right, man.
Yeah.
Listen, guys, if you are even on a on, the fence of getting started, investing in real estate, this is, to me, I wish I would have known this 20 years ago. This is something that I wish I had an uncle that told me. Look at us as your uncles telling you to get started, or your brother or whoever, your family, your relative, the friend down the street who buys all the houses. Look at us as those guys telling you that right now is the opportunity to be in real estate. Right now,
it's never been better.
It's never been better.
It's never been better. So this is what the government gives you right now to encourage you to invest in real estate. They give you depreciation like they always have, right? Mm-hmm. So if it's a business property, real estate, you're going to get the rent that you get, at least 3.6% of that, or whatever your basis is of your house. You don't have to pay income on whatever your depreciation offset is. That's benefit one. If you have it structured properly as a business, you're a small business, they give you a qualified business income deduction. So that knocks off 20% of your revenue that you don't get taxed on. That's probably going to go away too when this tax act ends. But you get depreciation, you get the QBI deduction, which knocks off 20% of your income, and then you get the opportunity zone law, where if you invest in the right area, you don't have to pay tax on it as long as you hold it 10 years. So they're giving you at least, 20% QBI deduction plus 3.6% just from depreciation. So each year you're knocking off 23.6% of your income going into the deal. And then on the back end, you're selling at a tax-free exit. And in the interim, if you borrow money, because again, you need 20% to get into a deal, right? Well, the government just gave you at least 23%. Well, they just gave you a 20% break on income, right? You need 20% to get into the deal, and then you can borrow the other 80%. If you do significant rehab or new construction, the amount that you borrow is going to pay back what you invested, and you don't have to pay tax on any of that because debt is not taxed. So you can get a house free, and you can sell it for free if you just hold it 10 years. There's no better time to invest in real estate than right now.
Free houses all over the place. And people think, obviously you can literally get a free house, but when people think numbers, they're not looking at, literally getting a free house. But these are literally free houses when you do the math.
Free houses when you do the math. And most importantly, we always complain about people coming in and changing our communities into what they want it to be. This is an option for you to go change your community to what you want it to be, and it costs you zero.
And all you have to do is have a little bit of knowledge, which was, this is literally everything that you needed to know. Yep. Take this information and do something with it. That's all you have to do. Stop being on the fence and go out there and do something to make a change for you and your family. Build that generational wealth, build that passive income. That's what this channel is all about. Time and freedom, yep. Right? Creating long-lasting wealth for you and your family. This is how you get it done.
Amen.
There's nothing better.
Amen.
Nothing better.
Nothing better. And then on top of that, again, if you stick with the new build, you're going to be in at the lowest price point. So you're going to have the most equity to use to go invest in other things because your price point is lower.
And here's another thing, man. When it comes to new build, I'm a huge advocate of new builds, primarily because, number one, I know what I'm putting into the house. Mm-hmm. If I'm gonna own the property for at least 10 years, I'm not gonna have a headache for 10 years because everything in the house is new.
Exactly. Yep. Lower maintenance. Yep. Exactly.
Way lower maintenance. You're building a house, you're getting paid for the house. Your maintenance is not going to match anywhere near a regular rehab house would match, and you're going to have high quality tenants. Mm-hmm. People like new stuff, so when they move in, they're willing to pay a premium for living in that new place. Yep. So there's benefits all the way around, and then on top of that, getting the tax depreciations and the tax benefits from buying in an opportunity zone. There is not a better investment out there. I don't care what it is, who you talk to. Real estate is the way to go.
Way to go.
I'm telling you.
Tax free.
So
Nothing else is tax free.
that's right, man. So if our listeners wanted to get some more information on how this actually works or get in contact with you, man, how would they do that?
Oh, they can catch me on ClubHouse or on Instagram at the King Malaki, KingMalaki.
And I'm going to make sure I'll link that in the description box. Now, you mentioned a book. You said Tax-Free Wealth.
Tax-Free Wealth. I think it's by Richard Wainwright, I believe. But just go to Amazon and Google Tax-Free Wealth.
Yeah, and I'm going to pick that up as well.
Yeah,
that's one book I haven't gone through myself, and I go through a lot of them, man. So Tax-Free Wealth, I want to make sure I link that. Are there any other book recommendations that you would recommend to continue their education?
Never Split the Difference is a great one. Yeah, those are my favorite too. Tax-Free Wealth and Never Split the Difference. I think that one applies to just the art of negotiation in life in general, not just business.
For sure, man. And when someone's looking at land, you know, I have my own theories on it, but it really is, it all boils down to numbers. When someone's looking at land, what advice would you give them for picking the right land and paying the right amount for it?
Highest and best use. So you just need to make sure you know what you can build on that land and what the rules, what the city rules and the homeowners association rules are for the land. So you don't ever want to don't go into it thinking, this is what I want to do with the land. Your thought process needs to be, this is what I'm allowed to do with the land, and can I make money based on what I'm allowed to do with it and what's being built around me? Because to get it free requires the bank to give you to allow you to do a cash out at the end for it, and a bank needs comps. So if there are no comps for what you want to build, then the bank likely isn't going to give you a loan for it. But if you have comps, then they'll give you a loan. So that's what I'm saying. It depends on, think of it as, what can I do with the land, not what I want to do with the land.
That's right, man. So we got Tax-Free Wealth. We got Never Split the Difference. I'm going to make sure I link all of your details in the description box below this video. If you're listening to this on a podcast, it'll be in the description as well. If you want to watch the full episode, rather than listening to it on the podcast, be sure to check it out on YouTube at Jamel Gibbs. And if you had to provide our listeners with some last words of advice, whether it be about the market condition right now and why this is still a huge opportunity, whether it be, just getting off your behind and doing something, what would those last words be?
Get involved now. Get your education. Get involved now. Get your education level up. And don't waste time. Learn what you need to learn so you can start investing now. Beat inflation by getting invested in assets, real assets, and get your credit in order. So the only way that all of this stuff is free is if your credit is stellar. And I forgot to mention the number one book that I think I'll buy, because I don't want to get shot. It's actually my wife's book called The Price of Perfection that she just put out. And you could find a link to that book on my Instagram page.
Cool, man. I'm going to make sure I link it for you down below as well, man. Tell your wife congrats on that book.
Appreciate
too,
it. I'll tell her that.
Yeah, man. That's The Price of Perfection. I like that name. I kind of just basing it off of the name, it kind of tells me what it's about already, man. So that's I'm looking forward to checking that out. So with that being said, man, we definitely appreciate you. You mentioned something about credit. What type of scores would you need to do something like this?
I'd say to get lines of credit, probably in the 700 range, to really get good rates.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, to get good rates.
Yeah, man.
Yeah.
So
the 700 range.
Build up, guys. That's what this is all about. Improve your situation. If you're not there yet, wholesale your way. Wholesale money, you pay capital gains on wholesaling too, right? So build your money up through wholesaling if you have to. While you're wholesaling, build up your credit. Get your credit scores right. Start building relationships with these banks. But more importantly, get educated and, start looking at these opportunity zones. The details that you need will be in the description box to get started. Contact Malaki on ClubHouse. Contact him on social media. But more important than anything, Go out there and actually take advantage of the opportunity. Do it. Make mistakes. Fail forward. Don't be afraid to fail and then pick yourself back up.
Amen.
And continue pushing forward. That's the only way you're going to learn. Malaki, were you an expert with opportunity zones before you started investing in them?
No. But I
were
took
you an expert at building and holding before you started doing it?
No.
You just did it, right?
Just did it. And did it and had good friends to help along the way. But most important, listen to what they told me to do. So that's why I say get educated. It's nothing you can't learn.
That's right. So at the end of the day, it's about having a little bit of information, but a little bit of information to take you a long way when you start taking action.
Right.
It'll all become crystal clear to you, and you become an expert over time. So just get out there and do it. Take massive action in order to get massive results. Let me know what you guys thought about this podcast in the comment section. Let me know what else you want to see. If you want us to have Malaki back to talk about, maybe we go into more detail on building and holding. Whatever the case may be, leave a comment in the comment section. I'm happy to have him back. This has been a fantastic podcast episode. I picked up a few gems, and I've been doing this for a long time, so I know you have as well. We thank you for joining us, Malaki, and looking forward to having you again, my man.
Appreciate it. Love to be back. Great episode. Glad to help.
Yeah, man. And I'll see you guys on the next one. Peace.